Well, Larry, it is Good News Friday. And Tesla didn't let us down today. A very nice day. I saw that it spiked near the end, but then I looked a second time because you encouraged me to, and it turns out so did the entire market spike during that time. So I don't think it was Tesla related, any news of Tesla, but it was a very, very good day for Tesla today. I understand you were super busy, so you didn't get a chance to really play and watch and think. But
yeah, I was on a call. I think my first call this morning was at 9 o'clock after I took the dog out and had some breakfast. And from that moment on, I have either been on a call or in prep for a call. And so I haven't actually touched base. I haven't even opened X.
haven't even opened X. Oh my goodness.
Open X. No, I don't think I did all day.
Then you haven't seen any of my brilliant posts today.
No, I haven't seen your brilliant posts, but you've become quite political in your posting. So,
oh, absolutely.
yeah, I'm not I mean, I don't do a lot of political. I sometimes I'm sometimes tempted enough to do it, but I, try and keep away from that stuff.
Yeah, well, for X, I thought I should, at least for now, until the election. I obviously will be way less political after the election. Larry, the biggest news, which you missed until I just told you a minute ago, is that the 1010 is going to be right out here in California, Burbank, just down the block. Well, okay, about 40 miles from me. So this one I will be attending one way or the other. I may not be inside, but I will be in the neighborhood. So, do you believe you'll be driving out or flying out or coming to visit?
I may do if I get an invite. I haven't done anything about getting an invite. I haven't heard about, any requirements for an invite. I guess you have to register your stock.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be like usual. Sure.
Yeah. I'll certainly be available for an invite if Tesla deigns to invite me or somebody wants to take me as a +1. I'd love to be there. But time will tell.
Time will tell. Yeah. Well, I'm looking for that +1 also if I don't manage to use my stock to gain the opportunity. That wasn't the reason for the stock going up higher today. I kind of thought it was at first. There wasn't really any significant news today. I think overall.
I think there was the significant news.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That Nvidia neither disappointed nor excited the market. That meant that the focus on Nvidia kind of, there was no longer this focus on Nvidia and all this trading around Nvidia. And I think the market got back to what it does. And I think there was, pent-up demand for the popular stocks, and I think most of them, must have got some advantage from that change of focus.
Yeah, Amazon and Meta and Microsoft were all up very nicely.
Yeah.
Google a little bit, pretty good day. Apple, for some reason, are down a bit. They've got their big event coming. I think it's next week. It might be the following week. There are so many things happening in the next 10 days, Larry. 12 days if you count the Fed. So the 12th.
One of the most interesting things that's going on right now is have we overhyped the AI? Has it been overdone? It reached its peak in the questions of Jensen last night. And so the question is, maybe Apple played this right, or maybe they played it very wrong.
Right.
I mean, my personal view is that Apple's failure to focus on AI is a negative, not a positive. And I think the lack of focus in AI and the lack of product innovation in Apple is a function of Tim his bias, and I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not there's been too much investment in AI and it's been overcapitalized, and whether we've got a .com bubble bust burst, whatever a .com bubble does when it deflates around AI. I think Apple needs to have been more inventive, and needs to have done more. And I think that history will not treat Apple well as a result. And so I'm saying that this kind of reaction to AI, this kind of questioning of AI, I think it's too premature. I think there's a lot more to come in AI. That's my view.
Reid Hoffman was on with the All In podcast today, and they were having that very same conversation again.
Interesting.
They seem to have it almost every week now, as to whether whether there's too much hype and not enough there. All of them seem to still be of the opinion, though, that any of the majors to not be 100% all in on getting to the Holy Grail would be foolish.
I agree with that. And it's interesting because I've made a few investments in what I consider to be quite promising AI plays. Actually, today I turned down a company, but not for that reason and unrelated problems, but by and large, almost all my investments in recent months have been in areas where there's been a significant value add in the AI functions that they've implemented. So I think it's very important. I don't think there's a single application that can't, in my space, which is classically in financial services.
Right.
I don't think there's a single function that couldn't be significantly advantaged by generative AI.
Right.
And this is a particularly true in Tesla's case, of course.
Right.
And in Optimus's case. So yeah, I think that all of this angst and questioning is overdone.
Yeah, Reid also felt that, as you, I think, were just saying, that the real opportunity here is going to be with a lot of smaller companies. It's not going to, be with, the big tech guys, they'll do what they're going to do.
Absolutely
But,
right.
the opportunities, Salesforce, talked about it in their call. Zillow just changed their CEO yesterday. The founder has finally bowed out, and he might have ended up still on the board, but their president became the CEO, and he said, "Oh yeah, that we see in real estate. We want an end-to-end online, way of handling real estate transactions instead of all of this running all over town." And so he sees, real opportunities there. So yeah, I think there's going to be lots and lots of these specific areas where would all of those be called embodied, Larry, even if they're online? Is it still embodied? No. So you got embodied, which means there's a physical thing.
Yeah, embodied is, something moving in the world.
Okay.
A physical thing moving in the world.
All right.
That the AI is contained within this physical body and is operating this physical body. So no, that's the antithesis of embodied, I would think. So
the apps. So we have the embodied, we have the apps. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we've been kicking around, Larry, you and I, for a long time, and I don't go deeply into Nvidia at all, but my last 20 years of my career, 18 years of my career, has been walking into companies and within a very few minutes being able to look at their financial balance sheet and go, okay, here's what you need to do, ... It's really becomes quite an art. And so now if I was walking into Nvidia right now and looking at their financials and their balance sheets. And of course, thank you, AJ, for all the help in seeing that in detail. It seems, Larry, that they're on a very predictable incline. Unless there's something new that they're going to add that we can look at downstream. I mean, they're going to be adding this and adding that, but to get another 75% margin item that would have these kind of volumes, to get something.
Let me tell you,
Okay,
let
go
me
ahead.
tell you something. I've been following this company for years.
Yeah.
You know, famously, I sold out of Nvidia like back in 2020, around 2020, after keeping them for 7 years
Yeah.
and doing very well out of them.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you the story about Nvidia. Nvidia has reinvented itself multiple times in multiple different industry or applications, functions, you know, and whether it's in Bitcoin mining or whether it's in games, whether it's in, you know, AI.
Mm-hmm.
And in every case, they have mastered and dominated that space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They've got several characteristics, and the one is they react very rapidly
Mm-hmm.
because they don't manufacture anything.
Right.
They have no production. They, you know, everything they do is outsourced, is manufactured for them. They're a design studio,
Mm-hmm.
and they move with great rapidity, and they've got incredible depth. And this is Jensen,
Mm-hmm.
and so this has been the pinnacle of his success. There's no doubt about it, AI.
Yeah.
So what comes next, I don't know. But all I know is that he always pulls one out of the hat. Yeah, 2 terrible quarters before, you know, the A100 hit.
Right.
Terrible quarters. I mean, stock was way down because, I don't know, was it, I don't know what particular end of life came or what particular product was no longer that I remember the end of the Bitcoin mining cycle, things dropped dramatically. And maybe it was the end of the pandemic when people stopped buying computers and there were suddenly orders. But he always comes roaring back. And it's happened like 3, 4, 5 times. So he's got my vote.
I guess, well, I'm not voting against him at all. I think what I'm trying to say is to imagine another 5X from Nvidia. There's nothing. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that, as opposed to, say, a Tesla where we can imagine 100X.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's a you know, will Nvidia continue, you know, to have 20, 30, 40, 50% per year?
Yeah, I mean, they could strike it rich with their robotic thing. They could strike it rich with their self-driving thing. They've got a lot going for themselves. A lot. Don't underestimate Nvidia.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, and one of the other things we talked about a couple of days this week, Larry, and I really want to hear your opinion because you like a couple of the other guys on the channel, Bradford in particular, have a fleet of Teslas and years and years and years of experience. And so a couple of things that came up last night when Bradford and I were talking is, number one, he said that he prefers his Model X to his Cybertruck. And I was just curious now.
Bradford. Well, maybe he's got a bigger family because you only got 5 seats and you only got 2 rows. So that may be. But here I will tell you that Cybertruck, the X doesn't touch the Cybertruck in terms of ride, in terms of quietness of ride, in terms of luxury of ride, in terms of ease of driving. I mean, there's no comparison. Here's the thing. If any of our listeners are interested in buying an X, my X goes on sale next week.
There you go.
Before I leave for the Starship launch, I'm going a bit of a tour. I'm going to Florida as well. I'm going to, I've got some business to do down in Florida, and then on to the launch in Brownsville, or the other way around, depending on what the timing is on the launch. But anyway, I'd like to sell the X before I leave, because as you say, I've got a fleet and Bradford's completely wrong. The X doesn't hold a candle to the Cybertruck.
That doesn't sound like a great sales pitch there, Larry.
It's true.
Sounds like you're trying to sell me on a Cybertruck. All right, well then here's the other big story of the week.
Yeah.
Which is Bradford, in fact, also put out an X post today because he's been testing the new model, the hardware 3 version of the 12.5. And he said, not quite as good as the.
He's absolutely right.
Okay. Right.
And I have posted this already.
Okay.
It is not as good as the hardware 4 or AI 4 chip. It feels more like an older version, like a .3 version, than a .5 version.
Okay. And so have you had interventions, or it's just a matter of the feel of it?
Yes. No, I've had interventions. So I've got an older 3 with hardware 3 on it, and I've got a X with AI 4 on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm waiting for FSD on my Cybertruck. So I drive both on my sort of test runs, and I have I've got this neighborhood from hell from a road structure point of view, and my hardware 3 Model 3 continues to get some of the critical lane choices wrong.
I see. Yeah.
Whereas my hardware 5, it's like
perfect every time.
It's like it's being driven by a spirit. It's so smooth. It's so pleasant. You have such confidence. I have had 1 or 2 interventions. Okay, I have the one intervention that I've spoken to you about on this channel before, which is the yield sign, the pedestrian crossing. You're on a 45-mile-an-hour. It was a backcountry road that's become a major artery through expansion, and there's a pedestrian crossing of a trail, and so there's a warning to slow down, and then there's a pedestrian crossing with flashing lights.
Right.
And you're supposed to slow so that you can stop for the pedestrians.
Right.
It neither slows, and it stops when it sees a pedestrian, but it's hell of a hard to stop from 45 miles an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like only yards away from the pedestrian crossing. So hardware 5 hasn't aced that at all.
Hardware
so I think
4. Hardware 4.
Hardware 4. So I think flashing lights, unusual signs, I think they still have that to solve.
Yeah, okay. So then on the economy, Larry, pretty much everything coming in right around where people would like. I mean, it's almost that Goldilocks period again, whether it was the PCE, whether it was the
PCE came in right on target, right? Below target, I should say.
Yeah, the Chicago indexes came in okay this morning. I'm a little concerned about the consumer preference index, not the consumer confidence, but the consumer preference. Now their press release that comes with it seems political for the last 2 months, and I'm starting.
What a shock!
Yeah. But I mean,
I'm not the political guy on this call. You are, but my God, what a shock!
Yeah. University of Michigan. I mean, it's just are they trying to put their finger on the scale?
Never.
But it came in.
It couldn't happen.
It came in okay. I mean, pretty much everything's coming in okay. So we get so with no shocks in the next 10 days, 12 days, whatever, 14, 15 days, we get that 25 basis points on the 12th.
Yeah, the only question is, some people are still saying 50 basis points. It's not going to be 50 basis points. It's going to be 25 basis points. If there's no undue, signs, that's what it seems to be. And, who knows? They may be right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, it seems like it. And I'm starting to, I still believe that we've been in a recession since June 1, but now I'm looking for a more solid confirmation. Something that would, like, for instance, next Friday, maybe the unemployment rate ticks up another decimal point, another 0.1%.
Or 0.2.
Or 0.2. Yeah, that would give me more of that signal I'm looking for, or something that would confirm.
That's my call.
Yeah.
That's my call. Let's see what happens.
Oh, okay. The other thing that would confirm it, I think, would be, we've been hearing about the automobile lots filling up with cars, no sell-through, maybe something that would be more confirming on that than just the reports that we're hearing. If we've seen Volkswagen is, wow, really doing a big cuts, huge cuts. We've seen
Stellantis is their inventory is just
crazy.
Crazy. I mean, they can't find place to put these cars. So there's Volkswagen, Stellantis. I think GM and Ford are not as bad. But the Japanese appear to have managed their inventory pretty well. So really, it's the US automakers that are in dire trouble.
Yeah. So, all right. So, other than that, any forecasts for the coming week? We will of course make more specific forecasts Monday night. But is there anything that you're seeing out there, hearing out there? You're on the phone, to some people that are startups. They got to be paying a lot of attention to the economy right now. What are you hearing anything out there besides what we're actually getting in real numbers?
I'm not hearing great news out there. I'm not hearing any of my founders telling me that things are great. Every founder is saying, I'm shy on this parameter. I'm shy on that parameter. I kind of made it on this parameter, and this is how long I've got to live. So everybody's focused on, what my cash burn is, and everybody's focused on, how many months of cash they've got. And if they haven't got 24 months of cash, I'm telling them, don't think you're going to make it, friend.
Yeah. So would you anticipate that whatever the economy is doing now, whether it's a soft landing, whether we've teetered over into recession, my theory is we pop out of it February, March of next year? Is that anything close to what you're thinking?
Yeah, from a founder's perspective, that's not really an issue of whether we're in recession or not recession, or when we pop out of it. The real question is, when does this period of starvation end for capital?
Yeah.
When does this period, when do we get out of the desert? So right now, Series A used to take, 3 weeks, 6 weeks to fund. I mean, now they're talking about 4 or 5 months at best.
Yeah.
And, and so when they re-up and if they run out, they have to start raising long before they get to when they run out. And unless they're doing extremely well, it's hard to, get that second wind. And the people who actually took borrowed money towards their, next round, or towards anybody who went into debt in the startup world is dead.
And what's happening with the exit strategies? You got no mergers and acquisitions. You got no IPOs. I mean,
there are some mergers and acquisitions taking place. There are some. It's not completely dead. But yeah, funds really struggled to raise, and those that did raise are being super cautious with their money. They're running very, very cautiously.
And what do you ascribe that to? So that's the right word, right? Ascribe, I think. What do you think is causing this kind of
Look,
reluctant,
the end of the line is the IPO.
right?
And without IPOs and without clear, acquisitive strategies from the larger, there's no incentive for the partners to, for people to invest in these venture funds. And then overhanging all of this is this idea of capital gains tax.
Right.
Well, capital gains tax will end the venture business across the board. I mean, you'll have to shut the business down. So, there's a reason that the venture business exists in the United States and not in many other countries, because in many other countries, the tax laws just make it impossible.
Yeah.
So if you want to start a capital gains tax, just understand that you're killing the venture fund industry.
Yeah.
Now, that may suit some people, but I'm as sure can be that it's not the intention of the people who want to raise capital gains tax that they want to also close down the venture fund industry, because I don't think they've begun to think about it.
Yeah.
But that's what's going to happen.
The all-in guys were also saying today that these tax ideas that came out of the Harris candidacy the other day, in terms of 25% for unrealized capital gains, 44% for the capital gains tax, 28% from 21% on corporate taxes, that basically the industry is shuddering. They can't even get their arms around the idea of what this would do to formation.
It'll kill it. I mean, there is no way that a venture business can be sustained with capital gains tax, unrealized capital gains tax. No way.
Yeah. And that's, as much as they talk about it being for people that are worth 100 million, the reality is a lot of the folks that are putting their money into these startups are worth 100 million.
That's where all the money is going. That's where I'm sure that the allocation from those folks, or something like 20 to 30% of the assets, go into startups. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
One way or the other. Well, there's some people who obviously don't do that, but I'm pretty sure that if you're worth 100 million, or if you have a family office with that kind of assets, that's where the money goes. A very significant portion of the money. And whether it's 10% or 30%,
right,
it adds up to a bunch of money.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at what happened today, Larry, and then I'll let you go and enjoy your weekend. We've got the Dow Jones was up 228, NASDAQ up 197, S&P up 56, and Tesla up 783. That looked like percentage-wise 55 for the Dow, 1.13 for the NASDAQ percent, and S&P up also over 1%, 1.01, and Tesla up 3.80. So right about exactly on their delta.
On their beta. But
Beta.
You made an error. You made an error with the Dow. You said 55. I think you meant 5.5.
No, 0.55. 0.55.
0.5. Thank you.
0.55%. I'm sorry. Yeah. So anyway, a very good day. Celebrate the Good News Friday right there. Oil got slammed. I don't know if you heard about that.
No, I didn't.
Well, what happened is so there was all these things in a row that have been impacting oil all week. You had Libya, for various reasons, completely
shut down.
Okay. Then next 2 days later, OPEC comes in and says that they're going to increase production. So somebody in OPEC, I guess, is not making their budget, and they're having to give up on this idea of cutting back on production in order to get the price up. So oil is back down to Texas Intermediate down to 73.65, and Brent down to 78.82, under 80 again, and falling today 2.98 on Texas Intermediate percent. So that's a pretty big one-day drop for oil.
Good for Camelot.
Good for, yeah, it's good for the economy, good for the future of inflation. Absolutely right. By the way, though, just on another numbers thing, because I love the numbers, as you know, the betting folks were not apparently too pleased with her performance last night. So betting.
Not only was the performance miserable, but what was the 18 minutes all about? I mean, you know, the whole thing has been blown, you know, anyway, look, I don't want to be political.
Yeah, okay. I'll let you off the hook. Okay, so bonds actually up. The 10-year is actually up today. Whoops. 4 basis points. Oh man, I am really all thumbs here. Second, let me go back to get me back to the bonds. All right, here we go. So the 10-year was up 4.2 basis points back to 3.9 after being down to 3.78, 77. The 2-year also up 2.6, but that puts them 1 basis point apart. So, but I don't know what's going to happen, Larry. I'm like waiting for it to firmly and forever flip, and then what? We'll
Then
have
we're supposed to be in
day.
a recession.
Then we're supposed to be, but I don't know. And the 2-month, which is just completely who knows what it's doing, but it's still 131 basis points higher than the 10-year, which is crazy. Then very quickly we go over to gold, down 24 today. Was the dollar going crazy? Dollar did gain today, but gold down 24.30. Wow. 25.36 still, you know, in the stratosphere, but I didn't hear anything about gold today. Did you?
Didn't hear anything about anything, but I mean, gold being down, you know, I guess the dollar went up.
Yeah, that's probably part of it. Silver was down even more, down 2.48%.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I just saw a headline before we came on saying that silver is at ratio to gold is very low. So this pundit was suggesting silver needs to move up in order to be at a normal ratio to gold. And you say?
I don't think so. I don't think silver has the propensity to rise with political uncertainty that gold has. I think the traditional relationship between silver and gold is quite meaningless. And I don't think that we should be judging silver by that ratio.
And copper down just a tad, but they've been, even though they've been up and down a bit, $4.22 has been kind of flat for a while now. I understand though that even at 422, there is a lot of theft of copper taking place. That's a very big deal still going on out there. Japanese were dollar up against the yen pretty significantly, almost a full percentage point today. And Bitcoin staying under 60, 59,186. I have no opinion. Any opinion for you?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin under 60 is reasonable, you know, I mean, I'm not a great Bitcoin advocate, but I would add under 60 personally. You know, I'm building like a very small position over time. I have still less than 1%, but under 60, I would continue to add. I don't know why I'm adding it, because I just don't have a high level of conviction, except it just makes sense to have a component of it.
I see.
Component of it in your.
Yeah, I have $10 worth. It was a gift. It was a gift.
There you go. There you go.
All right, Larry. So, you know, we've got a nice 3-day weekend here, time to relax and enjoy barbecue and all that. And then we do it all again starting Tuesday. The next 2 weeks, I'm expecting some volatility. There are so many things that are going to be happening in the next 2 weeks that it's hard to imagine that none of them will be a surprise somewhere along the way, because there's just so many.
Yeah, and then we're going to have to start talking about 10-10 and expectations and so on. So
Yes, well, I have that. I've got that down. I've already told everybody it's 265 before 10-10, unless Elon comes out and says you can ride in the back seat now, in which case it goes to at least 300.
yeah, well, I don't think he's going to be able to say right in the back seat now. And I think that I'm almost sure we're going to continue the age-old tradition of the stock falling right after the event. And which would be a great buy signal for me personally, by the way.
Yeah, I would think so. Yes, me too.
But this is not investment advice for anybody.
Absolutely not. And Larry, I want you to really keep thinking about this business of the supervised driver, what do you want to call it? The driver in the sky thing. Somebody on X today pulled up Elon's comments from, I forget when, but maybe a year ago, where he did say there would need to be a way for somebody.
It was from two investor calls ago.
Okay.
Like not the last one, but I think the previous one. I can look it up, but he definitely said, yes, there's no question about it, that they're going to need a supervisor. And he said it in a kind of offhand way. Yeah, I think we're going to need something like that, as if they haven't even given it some thought. But
okay, all right, okay. I think that's going to be a big issue between now and 10-10 and even after 10-10. When I say a big issue, I think it's something that's on everybody's mind more than it. I mean, as I look at X.
I don't know why, because I think it should be straightforward. I think they have to establish a service center where a car can call in, say I'm stuck, or a person can on their phone say, hey, there's a problem here, and somebody can then connect to the car and drive the car out of its problem. I'm absolutely certain of it.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, on that note, certainty is a great.
Of that note of certainty, yeah, Goldberg says.
We're gonna write it down. Thank you, Larry, as always, for coming on and doing this with me. It's a great pleasure to have you on, and to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.
And have a great weekend, everybody.